thing that some of us were fooled into thinking, is that the heat shield, is that the back shell, or is that an artifact or a defect in the image? Can you tell me about that? Thanks.
By the way, Ed thinks that it's a polar bear.
Well, you'd be running away too if they start blowing on you.
I'll take a crack at that. It's hard to say right now. Obviously, we've seen some images from various orientations around the lander, and we'll obviously, within the next few days, have full panorama and be able to see 360 degrees. The distance that the lander is from the parachute and from the heat shield is a function of a lot of parameters, most notably the wind is one. Frankly, the fact that we came down so well with so little horizontal velocity, it could be a combination of a couple of things. I would speculate that we had very low winds. We'll have to verify that through reconstruction. It could also be that we've nulled almost all the horizontal velocity out through the terminal descent phase. But the bottom line is it all depends on a number of parameters that our EDL reconstruction team will determine for us, and then we'll get a good fix on where to look.
Anything we can see in those images? Is there anything there of interest to you guys for cursory look?
Well, first of all, from Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, it's hard to imagine that we'll be able to make out a lot of detail from that distance. Clearly, if it was close enough to Phoenix, obviously there's a lot of interest we can gain in that. When we had the luxury of going to look at the aeroshell and the heat shield on MER, we don't have that ability, obviously. But if it's close enough, we may see something. But
no, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to waste your time here, which we've already done at this point. I meant there's a picture from the Phoenix that you can see near the horizon, something that's either an artifact of a defect in an image, or there's something there. That's what I was curious
We've all
about.
seen it, that's for sure.
But
it's
hard to say.
It didn't have a sign on it, so it's a little hard to tell what it was. But, this isn't our highest resolution picture. These pictures were compressed so that we could get them back for you today. And as we take higher resolution images, perhaps that'll come a little clearer, because I think there's probably several interpretations we could come up with out of this room right now. And I can see it in several people's faces. So let's wait a day. We'd like to be able to have things to talk about tomorrow, too.
Okay, we have a question over on this side.
Thanks. Todd Halverson of Florida Today. I was wondering if you had a pre-programmed script on board for the first couple of sols, or in fact 90 days, and if so, what is on the agenda for the next couple of days here?
Well, we had a pre-programmed script for today. For tomorrow, the team in Tucson is working very hard on that pre-programmed script, and in other words, it's not pre-programmed. And they will be setting that up on the Martian morning sometime late tonight. And depending on how we feel about our power situation and our communications abilities, how much data we can get back at the end of the day tomorrow, they will be adjusting the amount of things we can do. And since the power system looks so fantastically well done, and Ed's pictures just show that it went awesome, that I imagine they're going to cram a few extra things in. So I haven't actually found out what they're planning yet, but I will tonight, and we'll see what's on the agenda tomorrow.
Part of what we're going to have to do is finish a characterization phase with the lander itself. So we need a full diurnal cycle on the surface to see what the nighttime power requirements were for heaters, what the heater duty cycles were, how deeply we dug into the battery overnight, how quickly the solar arrays recharge the batteries in the day. So we need to gather all of that for a couple of days before we let Peter run wild on the surface, because we need to make sure that the science team has a realistic profile of how many watt hours of energy that they have as a function of the day, the cycle of the day, and then that gives them a whole lot better idea on how much that they can start trying to accomplish how quickly. So we need a couple of days really to make sure that we've done our engineering homework adequately.
Okay, no pressure, Peter, but what can we expect in terms of photos tomorrow?
We're going to try and take a panorama. I think it'll be in the opposite direction to the south. It won't be the full 360 because we won't be able to get it back in one day. but I believe it's around a third of a segment, 120 degrees. So it should be a considerable amount of data, and it probably will be in one color tomorrow, just so we can get a better sense of where we are. We're trying to fill in that huge panorama. So I hope we'll get that tomorrow evening, and I don't think we're having a press conference until Tuesday morning to show that to the public. But each individual image will be released as it comes down. The mosaics, we'll leave that to the hobbyists at home to put together until we can actually show ours. So there's a lot of people who really enjoy doing that, I understand.
Oh, yeah, we have a question in the front.
Ray Jagger with Aerotech News up in Lancaster. First part, I guess, is for Ed. The press kit said something about maybe being able to go to 150 days or 150 sols until you reach a negative energy state. And the other question for Dr. Smith is if you can work longer, do you have enough crucibles and reactants on your mini chem lab, to make use of that productively?
Well, I'll take the first part here. The primary mission is 90 sols, so that's about 92 Earth days, and then we have an extended mission for another 60 sols. So that's how you get to the 150. So what will end up, there'll be evaluation that'll be going on through the summer to look at the energy balance, and we'll be plotting the amount of energy that we can generate, the amount of energy that's required to run the science, and we'll be plotting where the crossover point is on that for when we are no longer able to fully charge the batteries during a daytime cycle. And then we'll be trying to make projections on dust accumulation on the solar arrays that we factor into that. So we really need to see how we get through the summer and how much power we have, whether it's above or below the nominal predicts, and then we'll be figuring out at that point how long can we nurse the lander along after the primary mission. But the first order of business is to make sure that we focus the ability of the spacecraft to support the primary science.
Now, the question about how many samples we can analyze and whether we have enough crucibles to take advantage of an extended mission, we have the ability to analyze 22 samples. Now, each one takes several days, so then you have to gather that sample too. So that could be 70, 80 days of just analyzing samples that we gather, maybe even more. And that's not all we're doing. We have to do some digging, and we have to do some atmospheric studies, and we have a whole lot of other activities that we're going to be trying to pay attention to. And plus, we have to account for some margin because we may have some down days. So by the time you add all that up, you're into already more than the 90 sols that we promised we would do, and you're into the extended mission. So I think we tried to balance the resources we brought with us with the amount of time and energy that we were able to use so that we didn't waste money by not using some of our resources or the alternative.
Steve, go ahead.
Any rough idea when the earliest you will begin the digging process? I know it's not going to be tomorrow or...
It's the end of characterization is when we really start the digging. That's probably at a week. If the arm is not too smart, we have to create a space for it to work in, and then we have to tell it where to go into that created workspace.
Yes. Okay. We have another question right over here.
Okay,
Dave Perlman from the San Francisco Chronicle. We've got another question for you, Peter. When you said